Today I am going to share with you some of my one-of-a-kind jewelry pieces. Got a presentation booklet here with quite a few of my one-of-a-kind pieces. These pieces are very special to me because I made them. I've mentioned before on the channel that I went to college and got my degree in studio art, and my emphasis, or whatever you would like to call it, was jewelry and metalworking. Specifically, I wanted to learn how to make jewelry with sterling silver, and that's what all of these are. All of these in this portfolio are pieces that I made in sterling silver. Most of them are pieces I made after I graduated college, but there are a few that I did before. But see, I've got my handmade rings here. Earrings are here. Got a couple necklaces here. The rest are over here. I have lots more just kind of in various areas of my house, and some of these you saw in my jewelry store roleplay, but I thought that these would be a good start, and maybe I can do another part later. So I think I'm going to start with my rings here. So, you might be able to tell, but I love to work with gemstones. That was one of the main reasons that I wanted to learn professionally how to do this, because I loved gemstones so much. So I'm going to start off with this. This is one of my absolute favorites. Sorry about my headphone wires getting in the way there. This is so I'm trying to remember the exact name of the opal, but it's an opal. And it's a really nice opal. It's got all the rainbow colors. Doing my best to get all of the colors on the camera. See the main color, there's green, red, yellow, there's a little bit of purple in there. It's a cabochon, and I cut the back out to a diamond, so when you wear it you can kind of see a little bit of a shape there. That cutout, it has a couple purposes. The first purpose is aesthetic. You know, it's just kind of a neat thing to see there. But other than that, it's also, what's the word? Pragmatic, I guess. It's so that if you put the cabochon in, the opal in, you can use something from the back to push it out. So this cabochon has been set using fine silver bezel wire onto sterling silver sheet, and the band was made with sterling silver wire. So you've got 3 wires all together here that come up to form these dots in this triangle here. I was just kind of playing around when I made this piece, and I love the way that the ends of the wires created this design. So I like to wear it like that. And when it's in the sunlight in particular, that opal really does shine. It's really hard to get a camera to pick up the intensity of the flash. This is one of my favorite pieces, to be honest. Start off with one of the best pieces, I guess. Ooh, you can really see that flash from the side there. Okay. Now, this ring, I was wearing this ring in the jewelry store roleplay. This is a labradorite faceted cabochon. Cabochon because it's got that flat back there, and faceted means it's got these flat cuts, these geometric cuts on it. You do not see a lot of faceted labradorite. It's a softer stone, and that makes it really difficult to facet without breaking it. I'm going to see if you can tell, but you can actually see from where it was faceted. There's several little areas that are a bit rough or not broken and not necessarily cracked, but there's just lines in it. There's a place right there. Just because of the way that labradorite forms, there's often areas of breakage on the inside of the rock, and it can just break down from the sheer faceting process because it's a pretty rough process. But I think the results are well worth it, and I don't mind the rough areas because the faceting really guarantees that you're going to get a lot more flash from your labradorite than you might otherwise. And you can see really well in this labradorite, it has a blue and yellow flash on top of its, basically green structure. And I've prong set it with sterling silver wire and put it on this light band here. 2 wires that split and are connected to the setting. This is a bigger ring, but I actually really like making rings with big gemstones like this. I think they are a really nice accent to the whole hand, especially if you're just going to wear like the one piece. And I also, with this piece, I really wanted the stone to be the highlight. So when you put it on, you don't really notice much of the silver because the stone is so large in comparison to the ring itself. And I think it gives it a nice effect because you get what I intended. You pay attention to the stone and that beautiful flash. This is one of the pieces that I made right after I graduated. I started on it, and then I left it alone because I had trouble with it. And then I eventually came back and finished it, and I just love the way that it turned out. next is one of the pieces that I made when I was still in college. So it's a little rougher, maybe, than some of my other pieces, technically speaking, because this is one of the very first basket settings I ever made. Basket setting meaning you've got this, you create this basket at the bottom with wire, and then have the prongs coming over the top to hold the stone in place. And this is a rough ruby. Yes, this is an actual ruby in its rough form. This is the way it's mined. It's been cleaned up, of course. If it were to be polished, it probably would not be a clear ruby. It's not that valuable of a ruby to be clear, but it would be a nice pinkish red, opaque ruby. I used a lot thicker silver on this ring than I do now, probably because that's just what I happen to have on hand, and I was wanting to practice this kind of setting. This ring is a little bit impractical. It's a bit tall off of the ring itself, but I do wear this ring sometimes if I know I'm not going to be doing anything that it can get snagged on, but you can see it really stands up off of the finger. I like it, but it's just not practical. It was just a bit of an experiment that I wanted to try. I'm interested in rough gemstones that haven't been faceted. Gemstones in general is a big interest for me. And I wanted to try prong setting a rough stone, and I've actually done that with several stones. Got one other piece, actually two other pieces, that will be part of this show and tell that feature these kinds of rough stones. This ring is kind of unique. I had these two drusies. I talked about drusies in my jewelry store role play. There's just thousands, well, millions probably, of little mini crystals in here. And it's been sprayed with a metal to give it this colorful shine. And I had the two of them. And when I bought them, I thought that they were matching in color. I just didn't pay enough attention when I got them. I had wanted to make earrings with them. But when I got to the design stage, I realized that, hey, they're pretty much completely different colors. So I decided to do a ring. Now again, the band is just very minimal, connected to your basic cabochon bezel cup. But I think the way that they're put together is a bit unique. The ring's actually been squashed a little bit, being in my presentation folder. But there we go. It's meant to be a bit adjustable, so it can be worn in different ways on different people. But however you wear it, I like how the cabochons are slightly offset like this, because it helps the light really capture all of those little crystals. Changing the angle, you can see. And when you're wearing it like this, it kind of looks like you're just holding these two pieces in between your fingers. Like I said, it's adjustable, so you can easily put it onto another finger. I love Druzy. I had some more of these jerseys that were blue, but I recently sold the earrings that had those. I also went with a satin finish on these, or a scratch finish, whatever you'd like to call it. It's not meant to be shiny because I didn't want the shininess of the silver to detract from the shininess of these crystals. Okay. The last ring I'm going to talk about is this big black feather plume agate. It's got a really long name. I think it's black feather plume agate. Pretty sure that's right. Whatever it is, it's absolutely gorgeous. Look at those beautiful patterns that nature created, and a very talented lapidary artist managed to frame and polish. Right here and here, there's a little bit of druzy action happening. There's little crystals in there. A little bit there too. And you can see a little bit right there. I was wearing this on a finger that my finger was really too big for it. And my solder seam popped. A solder seam is where you connect the silver together with solder. I still wear it every now and again because I don't really want to go through the trouble of repairing it because there's a risk of harming the stone, because like labradorite, agate is a weaker stone on what's called the Mohs scale. The weaker a stone, the easier it is to break the stone. Diamond is known as the hardest, or some man-made materials are harder or hard as diamond. But anyway, I really liked the design of this ring, how the V'd ring band went through these ovals on the side here. I made this ring around the same time that I made the opal ring, with these triangles on the side, so it was kind of like a continuation of that design experiment, just kind of working with it and furthering it. And I wanted something that was structural, architectural, geometrical, and still beautiful and worthy of this stone without detracting from it and distracting people from it, because it really is just a beautiful gemstone. It's one of my favorites, and it looks very good as a ring. Actually, I do have one other agate like this, but it's much smaller. I need to find another one around this size and do another ring like this. I really like it. I should wear it more often. So that's all of my rings. And I guess next I will go over my earrings. And last I'll do necklaces. I do make bracelets, and I do have some one-of-a-kind bracelets, but they're very big. They are not practical jewelry. They're more like art jewelry. I know a lot of people are like, why would you make jewelry that you're not supposed to wear? And it's not that you're not supposed to wear it. It's just impractical to wear in your everyday life. But I make art. I like to make art in all different mediums. And sometimes it's not about practicality. Maybe one day I'll go over my art jewelry pieces. It might be fun. Okay, I'm gonna put these back in here. I really like this portfolio. Alright, next. All of these are dangle earrings. I do have one-of-a-kind studs, but they're just around. These are better than my studs. I really like that sound. That's nice. Okay. Here we are. All my, well, not all, but a selection of my one-of-a-kind earrings. I'm going to start with these because I have worn these. I think I've worn these in more than one of my videos because I really like the sounds that they make. And I'm not sure, but I think the camera or the microphone does manage to pick up the tinkling sound that they make. Anytime I move my head, this metal piece here taps against the faceted rose quartz. I love these rose quartz. On the back, it needs to be polished, but there's a scratched finish. You can't see it because it's tarnished. See, and you've got 3 little sterling silver spheres on the end of this kind of leaf shape. The silver is so shiny behind the rose quartz that it's hard for you to see the pink of it. It just looks bright. The same, of course, with this one. I really liked the shape of these quartz. That's why I got them. I thought, first of all, quartz is also one of those kinds of gemstones you don't often see faceted because of their softness. I tend to like gemstones that go against their typical grain, I guess. I like to experiment with different things. But yeah, the shape is just gorgeous and they're perfectly matched. It's very nice. I'm often inspired by the gemstones for how I make a piece. I love these as well. These might be, along with the opal ring, might be one of my favorites that I show today. Now there's 2 different gemstones here. There is a aqua chalcedony and a London blue topaz. And it's a very special facet. That is, if the camera will focus on it, a Star of David facet in the London blue topaz. There is a gemstone, I guess a lapidary artist, that lives near me, and I bought these Star of David, London blue topaz cabochons from him. He cut them himself into this very special shape that you don't often see. Try my best, despite the glare, to show you the cut. You can kind of see it pretty good right there. So I thought that these two stones looked really good together. I decided to put them together and pair them with this hammered silver ring. I know that light is pretty bright on it. It's because of the silver backing the gemstones. Really helps bring out that flash. But it doesn't pick up very well on camera. And here's how the back looks. I left the ear wires very long on these. I do that sometimes. I don't know. I like kind of seeing the ear wire poke out from the back. I think a lot of people may not like that, but I'm a fan of it. Just seeing that little bit peeking out. These here were another experiment in using wire to basket set rough stones. Now these are actually they're amethyst. They've been heated to mimic citrine. It's actually quite difficult these days to find legitimate citrine on the market. Citrine is pretty rare, and it's pretty easy to mimic it by heating amethyst, which is a much less expensive stone. And it happens quite a lot, and people don't realize it. I was able to tell with these stones because you can see right there, whoever heated these amethysts missed a spot. There's still a very noticeable purple glare. And I actually don't mind this. I don't like the lying part of it, but I like the way it looks. I like how it's got this golden color, and then there's just this little purple peeking through at the bottom. Now this one isn't quite as obvious. There is a little bit of a purple sheen right there at the tip. You can kind of see it, but it's not near as obvious as this one here. But yes, I like the effect that heating the amethyst gives, but I don't like that it's hard to buy genuine citrine because people will just heat amethyst and tell you that it's citrine. But anyway, this was an experiment with modifying a basket setting, the kind of basket setting that I showed you with the ruby, the rough ruby ring. So you can kind of see that essential basket structure from before, but it's just the one line here, and it's holding the point actually upside down, and the wires have been hammered up through here to kind of give it a lantern effect. And to go with that lantern effect, I patinaed, oxidized the sterling silver. The light is hitting it pretty hard here, but you can kind of see it right here. The silver on these earrings is much darker than the silver on the other pieces that I've been showing. That's because I use something called liver of sulfur. It's an agent that you heat up and mix with hot water. Put the silver in, and over time it darkens. It's just oxidation, speeds it up. And then I continue to kind of rub it with a brass brush, and I'll hit it with a little bit of sandpaper to get this lighter colored effect. And over time, the oxidation can get darker or lighter. It just depends on how you treat the jewelry. But yes, I think that, yeah, I did that to go along with that lantern look. Like, this is the fire, the lantern held in a cage, and then you've got this kind of swirly earring hook. And I really like the way that these two came together with that imagery. And even though the stones look a bit different from one another and the settings themselves, the idea is similar enough that you can really get away with it without anyone really calling you on mismatched earrings or anything, because they clearly do belong together. At least in my opinion. Okay, the last of the earrings that I'm going to share today have a stone that I had never really heard of until I started really getting into gemstones for making jewelry. This is purple charoite. It has a very, very subtle color shift in these purples and whites here. It's very difficult to see it even in person. It's just a very subtle shift, kind of like tiger's eye, or cat's eye, but way less noticeable. But either way, it's a beautiful stone. It has a marbling of purple, black, and white. Bought these from a very talented lapidary artist off of Etsy. I loved the almost half moon shape. It's just a half circle, semicircle. But I worked with it and kind of finished the circle off with triangles, triangle wires. You can see on the back how it's connected. And also just more of that beautiful charoite marbling. Basic bezel out of fine silver. And I added a little sphere to the hook where it attaches, and that gives a little point to the top of the triangle. This was one of the first pieces I made after getting my own home studio together. Okay, so that's all of the earrings for now, for this video. I really wanted to share my most unique pieces today. If I were to show everything at once, this video would never end. have a really old video on my channel. It was a whispered ramble where I shared some of my jewelry collection. It'd be neat. I should go back and watch that video because I'll bet there's some jewelry or I'll bet there's gemstones that I talked about in that video that have now been made into some of these pieces. Maybe not, but there's a good chance. It was a really old video, though. Let's do these this way. Now I can start on the necklaces. I've got a couple necklaces on this side. I'll start with those. Both of these necklaces were featured in my jewelry store roleplay. There's this one. I love this one. I know I've said several of these are my favorite, but several of them are really my favorite. I get really attached to the gemstones. When I buy them, it's hard to let them go. So this is another lesser known gemstone that is just absolutely gorgeous. You can see there's a subtle flash of silver coloring in there. It's called larvikite. I think that's right. It could be larkivite. I always get that mixed up. It's either larkivite or larvikite. Also known as Norwegian moonstone. Much easier to remember that name. This is another one of those softer stones. You might notice there's some little chippings just in the surface from where they flattened the back of the cabochon. But on the front it's quite smooth. And these three stones decorating on the top are rose quartz cabochons, rounded on the top. And I used sterling silver tubing for the bail. And the bail is the piece that the chain goes through. They work really well as bails, and you really fit with this kind of, I know it's kind of a weird design, you know, a little bit tribal, a little bit alien. From the back you can sort of see the cutout general design idea I was working for. The 3 dots on top, the cutouts in between. And I just love pink and gray, pink and black. So I couldn't resist putting these rose quartz with this stone. I think it turned out really well. I think it's one of my better designed pieces, just in my own personal opinion. I did not make this chain. I pretty much buy manufactured sterling silver chain on a spool in bulk for most pieces. But a lot of the time I do make my own clasps. This is a sterling silver S clasp, or a hook clasp. Just very basic, no mechanisms to it. You just slip it on, and the weight of the pendant will hold it in place on your neck. And this is pretty much the same clasp that I make for most of my pieces. Next, I have a labradorite piece. And this was also featured in the jewelry store roleplay. I love labradorite. I love the flash it makes. Opal and labradorite are my favorite gemstones. Moonstone as well, specifically rainbow moonstone, but it's a distant third to opal and labradorite. Just look at that flash. And different labradorites have different colors of flash. Both of the labradorites I've shown you in this video had a very yellow-green, bluish flash, but you can also find pink and purple flash in labradorite. You can get very rainbow with it, just as you could with opals. And this is what was called, when I bought it, a labradorite egg. Essentially, they kept the rough rock on the outside and polished one surface. And it does give it kind of an egg feel to it. But I love that you can actually, on the back here, even though it looks rocky, you can still see that flash right there. Look at that. Still has a vein of flash, even in all that dark. Even though it's not polished, it's just absolutely gorgeous. I love labradorite. I loved these labradorite eggs so much, I knew that whatever I did with them was going to have to be a little different, and it had to keep all of the stone as visible as possible, even the back, because the back is so neat. So I decided to go with another basket setting. And you typically would not make a basket setting this large, but I did mention I like to go against the grain sometimes with my stone settings. Do something a little different. So I did, and I love the way it turned out. See, I had to do 6 prongs, very elongated basket structure, and there were areas that I did have to move the wire and shape it to the stone so that the stone would stay into place. But I think it was worth it to lose a little bit of the straightness in order to keep the stone firmly in place. And I just added a simple wire bail structure to 2 of the prongs and what's called a jump ring right here. And I got this manufactured, what's called I think a snake chain, sterling silver, or box chain, might be interchangeable. And I also did not make the clasp on this one. The stone is very heavy, so I wanted to make sure that the clasp was very strong, no chance at all of slipping since it was so heavy. Let's look at that beautiful flash right there. Okay. All right. It's time to get back into this portfolio. And underneath here are all of my necklaces. Most of my necklaces. There's always more somewhere. Okay. I'm just gonna keep the folder over here and bring the pieces over. They're held in with elastic. Okay, this is rhodochrosite. I think that's right. It's been a while since I've looked at gemstones, so the names can be similar. But I'm pretty sure, yeah, this is rhodochrosite. There's another one that's black and pink, and I think that's rhodonite. So it's easy to get those two mixed up. But I had this slab of rhodochrosite, and I knew I was going to have to set it a bit differently because it is a slab and not a cabochon. Slabs are very similar to cabochons. You know, they have a flat, polished back, but there's no rounded quality here. It's just been like a straight cut off of a stone. And it's, of course, been shaped into actually what's really lovely shape. I love this piece. I'm not exactly happy with the design I came up with this. This was one of the first pieces I made after a very, very long break from making jewelry. It was just kind of like my creative artistic foray back into it, just trying to get the juices flowing, wanting to do something different, kind of just like practice almost. And I made this hybrid prong bezel setting, so you've got the stone open on the sides here, but covered by the bezel wire on the top, and two prongs holding it from the bottom. For the bail, I made what looks to me now almost like ears. I don't really like it now. I liked it at the time, I guess, because I did it. But, yeah, so there's how it sits, like that. And I actually did make this chain. Like I said, it was my kind of foray into getting reacquainted with making. So I decided to make what's called a loop-in-loop chain from fine silver. And all of this again has been oxidized in the liver of sulfur, and I gave it a scratch finish on the sheet. You can see, like what I did was I took a piece of really rough sandpaper and swirled it on there. And with the liver of sulfur, it creates a really nice effect, which I repeated on this clasp, which is not an S-clasp hook clasp. This is a toggle clasp. For this, you can make a toggle clasp in a lot of different ways. This one, I used sheet, and I've used wire before. I've used tubing before. This is the way I did this one: sheet and wire. So you've got your shape here and your shape here. And you put it in. And ta-da! It stays together. So yeah, it's not my favorite piece, but it's kind of special to me because this piece kind of signifies my start into working in my own studio. Getting back into jewelry making after a long absence, and just letting my creative juices flow without really any responsibilities behind it. Alright, next I'll go over a piece that I made when I was still in school. This is the piece that was my final for one of my jewelry classes. It was bench jewelry, professional bench jewelry, I think is what it was called. And it was a class that taught stone settings and essential tools and skills you would need to work as a bench jeweler in your basic jewelry store. I learned so many different stone settings. It was wonderful, especially since, you know, that's why I really wanted to do that major in the first place, was so that I could learn how to do these kinds of stone settings. I made a butterfly. Sometimes the teachers would allow you to do kitsch. Generally, you had to just, go full out artsy mode. And, they understood that sometimes you just wanted to make hearts and butterflies, but that wasn't the point in art school. But every now and again, they would let you do whatever you really wanted to. You didn't have to have some big artistic concept behind it. this was one of those times. The teacher, he taught us these skills, and really the point of the final needed to be that you knew how to do the skills. It wasn't really a conceptual class. It was a very hands-on technical skills class. So on this butterfly, I have basket set a gorgeous faceted amethyst right in the middle. This is one of the very first gemstones I ever bought. This amethyst right here. And I love that it gets to be such a special piece. On the ends of each wing, I have tube set peridot. I used thick sterling silver wire to create these wings. I forged the shapes on an anvil to give it that texture. And then I created what's known as a rabbit ear bail, because it looks like rabbit ears. There's a more professional name for the rabbit ear bail, but I can't remember it. But in this case, I actually used it for antenna. Instead of rabbit ears, it's antenna for the butterfly. I did not make this chain. This is more manufactured bulk chain, but I made a different kind of toggle clasp for this one. So you have a basic circle shape, but I used a tube, and I set peridot in the ends of the tubes, or the tube. So if you're wearing it and you have like short hair in the back or a ponytail or something, you're still going to have something really beautiful to see back there. Or also, what you can do, what I've done with this piece, is in the front, I wear the toggle. I actually will wear the toggle like right about there, like that. So you just put it on like normal on the back, and then just bring the toggle to the front, and you can sort of see these peridot will pop up and hit the sun every now and again and draw some attention. Just as long as it's not too close to the butterfly, because you don't want it to like hit the antenna. But I love this butterfly piece. It's another piece that's very special to me. That class that I took was probably my favorite class from college, learning how to do so many different stone settings and actually getting to learn a little bit about gemstones in general and the industry. It was so much fun. And that amethyst, I can't get over it. It's so beautifully faceted. It was pretty expensive. I got a great deal on it just because it was a gemstone dealer that knew one of our teachers. He would come through and sell gemstones and would give the students a pretty good deal on it. But it was a very professional cut gemstone. Next, I will show some more opal. And it's actually rough opal this time, instead of a cabochon. And it's very tiny. See how tiny? And this is a rough opal. It has not been faceted. Actually, the origin of these little rough opal pieces is from, a lot of the times there's miners that don't really know what they're doing, and they'll chip away at the opal that they're mining, and little pieces just fall off. And then either they pick them up or other people come along and pick them up, and they can sell pretty inexpensive, really. And I still think that they're gorgeous, even though they're mistakes. They're gorgeous, beautiful mistakes with that red and green flash there on the side, the front. I love rough gemstones, I really do. I wish I had some rough labradorite pieces to show off to you, but I don't. I've sold all my rough labradorite pieces. So I just prong set, very simply, this little tiny piece. There's nothing really super special about this necklace or anything like with the other ones that I was showing. I just really like it. I think it's cute. And I love the rainbow flash of the opal. I wanted to make sure how I set it didn't cover up that flash. And I did the basic S-hook clasp. Okay. Before I bring out any more, I'm going to put away some of these that I've gotten out so that I don't have too much of a mess to clean up when I'm done, and so that they don't get messed up in any way. Especially this butterfly piece here. I would do this on the camera, but it's a bit big. Okay. Now this is a piece that I started while I was in school, and I finished it afterwards. I made the pendant part of it in college on my spare time, but the chain I made in my own studio. This is what you call a double loop and loop chain. I showed you the loop and loop chain on the rhodochrosite piece. And this is the double version of it, which is just very thick, gorgeous. It could be considered manly or just stately. And I'm holding this beautiful labradorite. And this baby's huge. Look at that. This was one of those pieces that I saw it and I had to buy it, this labradorite, because the flash, the pattern of it, it's almost like an animal print. You've got the bright yellow in the center with greens and blues outlining each flash. And on the back, I cut out shapes that kind of mimic the shape of the flash. So now you've seen the back, you can kind of look at the front and see how I was trying to mimic those shapes. I put a big sheet bail on here. It's just a big, stately piece. I wanted to set this big labradorite, so I did. And then after that, I needed to make sure I had a big, thick chain for it. So I did. And then I just did my typical S-hook clasp here. Yeah, these chains, they take weeks. They take a long time. Because what I have to do is I have to make each and every individual ring. And then you take those rings and you stretch them and you interweave them into one another. That's the best way I can explain it without doing it on camera, which maybe I should one day. I think that would make, try to get that to focus. I think that would make a good ASMR video. But yeah, that labradorite flash is intense. This piece is so big. It may be too big, but I couldn't resist. That light's hitting the cabochon. Okay. I'll go ahead and put them back as I get done with them. That would be smart. Alright, now I'm going to do my last piece that has rough gemstones. And this is also a piece that I made when I was still in college. I did an entire line of rough set gemstones. I'd actually forgotten that I had this piece in this portfolio. This is rough amethyst, and this is rough blue apatite. I love the way they look in their rough form, especially this very neon blue apatite here. I love how there's a bit of brightness in that blue apatite, even though it's still rough and hasn't really been polished or anything. But again, it's just that same basket setting you saw with the ruby ring, except the wire is a bit thinner, which is really good, works better. And to keep kind of minimal, I did not make any bails. I just strung the manufactured chain through the basket setting itself. And I used the same wire at the end for a different kind of design on the S hook that I don't really do that design anymore, but I kind of like it actually. Kind of like how it's elongated like that. I might do some more like that. I like that actually now that I'm looking at it. So nothing special or memorable about this piece other than it was a part of a line that I did when I was in school. And I had a lot more pieces that went along with it, but this was one of the ones that didn't sell. Oh yeah, I'm going to put them back instead of just letting them lie here. Okay. I've got 2 left. I'm going to save my favorite for last. But this piece I'm about to show, I also really like. Practical wise, there's a word that I know is in my vocabulary, but for the life of me I can't think of. That means I like it, but it doesn't wear well exactly. It doesn't exactly work comfortably at times. And I don't do this style anymore because of this, even though I like the way it looks. I also did this with the pink, the rhodochrosite piece, where I separate where, like, I don't have a bail, but I have 2 areas that the chain connects to. I don't do that anymore just because when it's hanging on your neck, if the necklace shifts at all, it gets off kilter like that. And, if I'm wearing it, I'm spending all day trying to, make it straight. But aesthetically, I really like it. It's just one of those things where, as an artist, you're creating and you're making and you're loving how it looks, but you kind of forget to step back and remember, I've got to wear this. So you got to make it to where it's comfortable to wear and not distracting. But I think some people don't have the problem with it than I do, because I see a lot of people wear necklaces like that, and I'll see them get kind of crooked like this, and it doesn't seem to bother them the way that it bothers me, so who knows? I don't. Anyway, this is a boulder opal. There are big boulders, and there's streaks of this opalization that occurs throughout. This part right here, this brown part, is what most of the boulder will look like. But then there will be these huge veins of gorgeous rainbow opal. And there's several different specific varieties of boulder opal. I did your typical bezel setting for this, except I did not cover up the top. The top was too beautiful, and since this was more of a slice than a cabochon, it worked out really well. And this is another loop and loop chain, going with that, like that double loop and loop I showed you before. This is the single loop and loop. It takes half as long as the double loop and loop, but still a very, very long time. And I did a very teeny tiny S-hook on this. I'm not sure why I made it so tiny, but I did. Sometimes I just like to create variety. It's a very long chain. I wanted to make it so that it hung really long. So yes, beautiful boulder opal. This is one of those stones I wish I had more of, but they're very expensive. They're worth it though. Gosh, they're so gorgeous. I'm not sure if you can see all the subtle color changes that are happening on this stone as I move it, but it's like an entire galaxy in person. Okay, I have one more piece, and if it's not my favorite, it is in the top. There's nothing nostalgic about it or special about it. It's a piece that popped in my head when I was looking at Flower of Life designs, and I got this idea of using gemstones to create the Flower of Life in a design, and I did it with labradorite cabochons, and there's so many labradorite cabochons on this piece. Here it is. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cabochons in this pendant. It's almost like a medallion. And it is based on the Flower of Life design. I had all these beautiful oval labradorite cabochons with this blue flash. And I also had these small circle labradorite cabochons that had the same blue flash. So I started kind of moving them and putting them together on my bench, and came up with this. And then I had some of these spheres, sterling silver spheres, and I put those in between. Then I cut out the silver for the back, which even by itself, I really love the back of it. I left the labradorite exposed to gain more flash. And I did oxidize the silver because it looks so much better with the labradorite oxidized, in my opinion. And I used a tube again here for the bail. Thought that was a really good way to make a bail without distracting from the design of the pendant. It's just nice circles, lots of symmetry, good labradorite flash, and of course my typical S-hook that I like to do. And I left the oxidation quite dark on this one, darker than I often do. But I did a lot of brushing with a brass brush on these spheres, so the spheres have this highlight quality to them that makes their roundness really pop. This piece took me a really long time to make, and it was well worth it. I love wearing it. It's pretty big, but for some reason, when I'm wearing it, it doesn't seem that big. I think I just get entranced by the flash of the labradorite. And this is a manufactured chain. After working on this pendant, there was no way I could have had the patience to make a chain for it too. It took a long time to make. Well, that is all the jewelry that I'm going to share and show and tell today. As I said, I do have more, and maybe I can go over the other pieces of my collection at some point. Art pieces and the pieces that are, less unique, more sellable, merchandisable type pieces. These are like the in-between pieces, the art pieces to the very kitschy sellable pieces. I'm going to zip up the portfolio. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching my show and tell of my one-of-a-kind jewelry. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that you have a wonderful day and a wonderful night. Goodbye.